Guess I'll come in hot with a quarterback questions. That's all we as reporters seem to be getting as well. As far as JT and Stetson goes, I mean, is JT getting any reps at all with the ones, and kind of how is that working out during warm-ups for this game?
Yeah, we don't disclose that information. We just talk about the guys that are doing their job, and all four of those guys have done a tremendous job working with us. Brock's been giving us a great picture down on the scout team end, and JT and Stetson are both really doing a good job of simulating the offense that Micah wants to do. And like I talk about all the time, we're going to play the guy that gives us the best chance to win. And I'm really proud of the way both those guys have practiced. We've done, I guess, 4 or 5 camp type practices, and 2 really focused on Michigan type practices. And both guys, Stetson and JT, have been really good in terms of locked in and focused on what we need to focus on.
Coach, this is the Orange Bowl in Miami. Typically that's a really festive atmosphere, but it's different, I guess, in a playoff. You dealt with this in the Rose Bowl a few years ago, but what is the balance between enjoying where you are? And Warren McClendon was talking about, I've never been to Miami. I'm looking forward to being there. And then, I mean, obviously the games don't get any more important than this. Can you have any fun at all?
I think the fun is in the preparation. The fun is in the atmosphere you get to play in. I think when you talk about CFP, it's a tremendous opportunity. I mean, no matter where you play, it wouldn't matter where you're playing to play in the playoffs, you got a grand opportunity. We have a very mature team. We got great leaders. I have full faith and confidence that our guys are going to handle it the right way. They're also going to be down there for, almost a week. So it's not to think that if we were having a game here right now, and it was a big game, in Athens for a week, our guys, they all prepare different ways. They spend their time in different locations. And I've got a lot of confidence that the seniors and the older players will have a good time, a good experience. And when it's time to be focused, be focused. You can't focus 24 hours a day, 7 days a week and be at your best. So we're trying to build to a moment of truth and build that kind of energy and focus to where we need it to be at game time.
All right, let's go to Jake Rowe, and then we'll go to Seth Emerson.
Hey, Kirby, I wanted to ask you about kind of your injury situation. Chris and Jamari were kind of banged up there for the SEC championship game. Wanted to see how they're doing as far as their progression goes. And then have you guys been able to get through practices thus far without anything big happening?
Both Chris and Jamari have been practicing. Chris has been a little more limited in terms of volume, but he's practiced each and every day, and he's still overcoming his knee, but he's done a great job. Jamari's been out there every practice doing a good job and gotten a lot more work. He actually didn't get a lot of work before the SEC championship game, so he's been able to practice. And we've had an opportunity to get a lot of young guys work in the time building up to our game prep, and proud of all the work the guys have done. But there's no injuries that I can think of significant right now. Lad's been a little banged up and he's missed some time, but expect him back. That's really it.
Kirby, when you have a game like the defense had in its last game where I guess exposed is a word people are throwing out, is there a balance between reacting to what you saw in that game versus you're about to play an opponent that is probably a different kind of offense that you faced in the last game?
The biggest thing is we're always technical with our players, and we're very truthful and honest. And if you sat in our meetings, you would know that a lot of the games that people might say that we dominated or held guys to lower points, we didn't play real well. So we don't do it any different based on the outcome. We do it based on how we execute, how we perform, not just on statistics. And we've kind of talked to our defense about that. We're very technical and honest. What can we do better? How can we improve? And then how do we take away what the opponent does? And Michigan does a tremendous job. They're very multiple. They have a lot of personnel groupings. They're extremely physical, and they're committed to being physical. And they can play in space. They've got really good athletes. And, you know, we know that they've got a tremendous team. You know, their offense coordinator was at Alabama. He's done a great job. So the challenge is there, and we've worked hard to really work on us fundamentally. You know, self-scout. What have we given up? What have people seen on us? What changes can we make that would be beneficial for us? And that's really been our focus: is how do we get better fundamentally, not about the last game.
All right, next two questions to Mark Weiser and then Charles Odom.
Hey, Kirby, after the injuries that JT dealt with earlier in the season, are you confident that he can play at the level he did in the last 4 games of last season if called upon?
JT's done a tremendous job in all our practices and all our work of being able to be effective and understand what we have to do offensively and making decisions. We get to see him go sometimes against 2 defense, sometimes he gets to go against the 1 defense, depending on what we're working on. And he's done a good job of doing that.
Another question about the challenge for your defense against Michigan. They are physical. They also lead the nation with 17 plays over 50 yards. As you have gotten into your game planning, what do you see? How does Michigan create these big plays? And can you talk about the challenge for your defense in that regard?
Yeah, they're explosive. You know, they've got explosive playmakers on the perimeter. They do a really good job of mixing run play action. I mean, some of their run play action, you would think it reminded you of our run play action. They hit really big explosives off of their runs. The complementary game of, okay, we've got this run. If you play this run too aggressive, then we're gonna have an answer to it off of it. And eye violations, eye control of second level players is critical. They have really good skilled tight ends. They have really good backs. The quarterback is extremely experienced and understands what you're doing before you do it, and they can make you pay. That's where those explosive plays come from. Breakdowns mostly. You know, they either break tackles or bust, and they can confuse you by what they do. They do a great job of game planning each week.
All right, let's go to Connor Riley and then back to Allison Mastrangelo.
Hey, Kirby, I wanted to ask you one, how is George Pickens sort of progressing as he continues to get healthier from that ACL injury? And it always seems like he plays really well in bowl games. Is there a specific reason for that? Is the extra time off in between the games? What's the reason for George always seeming to play at his best in these sort of bowl game situations?
Well, I think the opportunity to throw in the 2 games you're mentioning, people try to take the run away, and when you do that, you sometimes leave yourself one-on-one, and we've had an opportunity for him to make some plays. Going back, I guess you're referencing Baylor and Cincinnati. He had opportunities to make those plays because he was one-on-one in a lot of situations. You know, he's still not 100%. George is working really hard, but we see him every day, and getting to see him every day is he's working back to get that way, but he is not there. Nobody is. I mean, there's no person on earth that comes back from an ACL and is back out there running the same speeds and confidence and breaks that you would usually have. And he continues to get better. The biggest part is understanding, all the details and intricacies of the offense, of making sure he knows splits, shifts, motions, IDs. And when you don't do that for that long, I think everybody just assumes it just comes back natural. That's not something that's you just wake up and do. It takes reps to do that. And he's only been able to start getting these reps in the last really 2 to 3 weeks. But he is getting better, and he is working hard at his craft, and he's gotten a lot of reps the last 4 or 5 practices.
Kirby, what's kind of been the message to your guys when they're going into this playoff scenario where it is one and done, and not being, too high or too low going into this game when you have almost 3 weeks to prepare for it, or if not more?
Well, the messaging doesn't start right away. I think you guys probably want messaging and want to build it up, but we're trying to make sure that we're focusing on us and fundamentals and why are we here, and what is our why, and what's important to us, and build to that point where we get to. Now, we've done a lot of work in terms of conditioning, lifting, trying to improve the depth of our roster. There's a lot of things going on, but we're really at the second, third practice into Michigan in terms of detail and making sure they understand the intensity with which they're going to have to play with, the strain with which they're going to play with, the physicality that they play with will have to be matched. And they do a tremendous job of that.
All right, next question to Palmer Toms and then to Vance Levy.
Kirby, I know y'all have had some of those recent signees join you here. Wanted to see, first of all, who those were and not necessarily how they're doing, but what kind of opportunities they have to come in here and get some experience under their belt.
Those guys have been great, man. They work really hard. They're really positive. They've jumped right in. Our players have embraced them. We appreciate them doing that because we're not really doing it for their development as much as it is their exposure, but they are able to provide depth at some positions that maybe we were down on in terms of injuries. They give the scout team a much better picture. And somebody commented how good of kids they were in terms of doing their check-in, doing all the process. They have physicals and all the things they have to go through to be able to do it. A lot of kids just don't want to do it because it's kind of a pain in the butt to go through all that in such a short amount of time, and really just to get 2 or 3 practices in. But it was important for them to do it, and they've done a great job.
Kirby, when you look at Alabama's successful offensive game plan, get rid of the football quick, a lot of that. What's the best way to defend that? And then how do you keep your defensive linemen not getting gassed as they appeared to be in the Bama game?
Well, you got to be in good shape. You got to be able to play more players. And there's a lot of times they didn't get rid of it quick. He held it. There's a lot of times that he was able to scramble and make plays, and a really good athlete. But how do you stop it? You cover them, right? You have to be able to cover people. You have to be able to play people, man to man, whether it's man match or man to man. There's all kinds of different mans, but you got to be able to cover people, and that's a premium in all of football. You look across the NFL, and you got to be able to cover people. And at the end of the day, we got to do that, and you got to affect the quarterback, whether it's batted balls, sacks, scrambles, disguise. You got to be good at all those things, and that's not going to change regardless of who you play.
All right, next question to Ryan Curley, and then we'll go to Lance McCurley.
Hey, Coach, I kind of asked the players this too, but what's different about the atmosphere on campus? How do you keep them motivated? There's nothing to do but work out. There's no school. Their friends aren't in town. What's different, and is any of the messages you give them different during this time?
There's just more time. I thoroughly enjoy it because we don't have, finals are over. The stress of academics that some of our players go through, several players referenced to me. I feel like I'm in the best shape of my life. I've been able to work out. I've been able to eat right. I don't have the stress of going in and out of classroom, tests, finals. We get more time with them. We're able to do more walks. We're able to lift more. We're able to condition more, recovery in terms of our treatment, the facilities. All that's great. Now, when they're away from here and they're down, there's not a lot going on, but that can be a good thing if they handle it the right way, and the maturity of your team kind of exposes itself during this time because, they're going to a basketball game at Stegman or they're going to their apartment to play video games, but there's not a lot going on outside of that. And I think, most of our kids handle that in a mature way.
Hey, Coach, just in the past, have you ever faced Jim Harbaugh, at Alabama or such, and just a relationship you might have with him and just kind of evaluate his season going 12-0 and upsetting Ohio State and being in this position?
Yeah, as far as I remember, I don't think I've ever gone against Jim in terms of crossing paths. He was in the NFL for a while, and Stanford, I don't think that we've crossed paths in terms of a game, but I have a lot of respect for the way his team plays. They're physical, man. They like to bludgeon. You can tell they have some form of contact every day in terms of we're going to run the ball and we're going to run it right here, and we don't care if and we're going to move you. And I have an appreciation for that physicality because when you play, whether it's a game that comes down to the last possession, there's times you have to be able to run the ball to end the game. And they've been able to do that really successfully this year. They also are explosive. and can throw it. They've got 2 quarterbacks that are very effective. They do a great job defensively. They are unbelievable at what they do. And they put together a really, really, really talented, good roster. You look at special teams, these guys are probably far and away the best team we've played this year in special teams. They have starters all over it. They're very aggressive. They have a ton of respect for the way they play and the way they coach. And I think that answers your question in terms of Jim.
We have time for 2 more questions. We go to Jed May and then to David Pascal.
Yeah, Kirby, I wanted to ask about Aiden Hutchinson from Michigan, obviously coming off a Heisman finalist and all that kind of stuff. Just what have y'all seen from them or seen from him on tape so far, and just how unique of a player is he just from what you've been able to see of him?
Well, I don't think we faced anybody like him. He's different. He's his length, his desire and want to is freaky. You know, he's a tremendous athlete. He's powerful. He's long, but he plays so hard. And, you know, you don't measure a man just by his measurements and his 40 time and his testing, of which he has really good. You measure a man by how he strikes and the physicality and toughness and want to he has. And that's obvious. I mean, we've talked repeatedly to our players about strain. You know, nothing casual. There's not going to be anything casual about this game. And it's going to be about strain and physicality, of which he prides himself on and does a tremendous job. So it's an incredible opportunity for our offense to go against the likes of their defense, but it's also going to take a lot of hard work and toughness to persevere through the game and match that entire intensity the entire game.
Kirby, wanted to ask just about the film study. I know a lot of coaches use a 4-game breakdown during the season or whatever, but with the bowl game and extra time, have y'all broken down every game they've played this year? Do you focus more on the last couple because they've been playing so well? How does the breakdown happen with a bowl game like this when you've got more time?
Well, I think everybody has their own way, and I don't think anybody really wants to share that, David, to be honest with you, because, you know, if you know what games they break down, you know which ones they don't. I mean, we look at all of them. Nobody doesn't look at all of them in this time. You might not have all of them in a cycle or in cut-ups, but because you can have too much information that you can't make good decisions. But you try to find, you know, things that are similar to what you do and how they'll attack it. Same way with our offense and same way with our defense and our special teams. But we've got a big enough staff that we're able to look at everything, but looking at everything is not always a good thing. You can see too much and see nothing, or you can see a little and see a lot. So we have our way of diving into it, and we use that, and I'm sure they have theirs.
Thanks.
Thank you, Coach Mark.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great